Okay, welcome everyone. This is the first Vasa Pills. I just decided today to start recording, not recording, broadcasting something, but somebody asked me to record, so we are recording this. So if you lost the broadcasting, you can recover the recording again. Uh, I want to start today. Mm, Trying to show you all the works that were done during this period because someone in the chat said that we didn't delivery because nothing was done in this period, and that's not true because we did a lot of tons and tons and tons of things in this period. The most important thing I think it is the bazaar, which was I think 97, 98% complete. And here's the code. Bazaar core, as you can see here, I will open the repo, and Bazaar periphery. Um, just give me a second. Bazaar core and Bazaar periphery, for example. Um, Okay, so what is Bazaar? Bazaar is essentially a fork of Uniswap v2, which, according to me, is the best smart contract architecture in the entire Ethereum ecosystem because it is perfect. It works like a charm, and it's good. And we heavily modified the code, but we want to be extremely sure that this code was supposed to be audited after our edits. And we did a lot of edits here, and especially for the part of the fees where there of the farming of that pool. And every time you swap, if you are swapping some tokens, the token will go to the farming as a reward for the next season. And instead, if you swap ethers, the Ethereum went supposed to go to the Ethereum OS organization. And because something particular also in the bazaar was that the pairs were made only with Ethereum, not with double tokens, let's say. Ethereum was always managed with according to WETH, and because it was the best way to implement the logic without being without introducing a lot of useless edits. But yeah, as I said, because how the pair worked, the Uniswap v2 pair fee method worked. It was extremely difficult for us to introduce the fees. Because also there were another additive fee if the ERC20 token involved in the pool was a deck of the item standard. In that case, if it had the royalty, there is another additional fee that pays the royalty to the royalty receiver of the NFT linked to that debt. So this was the most important complication, and yeah, it created us a lot of problems because of the complexity and because of the code and because of the Solidity version, which was extremely old, 0.5, and we decided to not change that because there is a lot of math that use low-level Solidity APIs, which change for every version, and that could be a problem to introduce a new version and beware that everything works like a charm, because another problem we encountered that we didn't want to drastically change the repository, and for this reason we didn't change all the architecture of the JavaScript part of the repository, which just uses the original hard dot configuration by Uniswap. So all the tests made by Uniswap were modified, and we introduced a new test written in hard dot to let everything work extremely in an extreme efficient way, and that was extremely complicated because hard data is difficult to set up and to use, even when you are inserting all these kind of new edits. For example, let's see something. For example, this is something that we were forced to introduce, the swap struct, because the problem that we introduced it with, the problem that we figure out here was that there were tons and tons and tons of new variables to be introduced. And when you introduce more than 16 variables per method inside Bazaar, it stopped work. Because because all the technology linked to the Solidity. I don't want to bore you with this with all these problems, and that is the most difficult part. And we did a lot of edits right here. For example, here. For example, transfer protocol and royalty fee. If we needed to transfer WETH, which was the token inside the pair, we needed to transform the WETH in Ethereum and then transfer that to the royalty receiver address, if any, and to the protocol if there is a protocol fee, etc. And this is something that we changed. Also, there are a lot of internal pair to be modified. To be modified here, which are the original Uniswap variable, and we must be extremely sure that everything works like a sham. And to do this, it was so complicated that the guys who developed it, because I just directed the work, I just created the part of the farming that I will show you in a moment. But the guys who developed this were forced to write a white paper in order to be delivered to the auditing company once the code was ready, to let them figure out how the fee system worked in order to be sure that it can be auditable, and that was a huge risk because of the economics inside the Bazaar. And that was a problem. As I said, when you create a pair, you create also the farming, and the farming contract was a part of the governance farming logic that we adapted to the to this Solidity version, and in a way that doesn't use, of course, the MMM aggregator, etc., but just a brand new way. Why I'm telling you this? Why I'm starting with this? Because we split the farming of the Bazaar in two pieces: the Bazaar farming and plus the base farming, which is a piece of code that I rewrite by my own. We first developed the Bazaar farming, and then I split the base farming in order to reuse this base farming in the new version of the delegation manager we were preparing, that I show you. That I will show you right now, because I think that the most important part here is to show you what is inside the Ethereum computational organizations repository, which is the most important for us right now. But I want to start from here just for this base farming. Let's see if I can open it. Yes. Okay. First of all, again, the most important thing, 0.5 solidity. So this means that we didn't have all the best features of solidity which were introduced from 0.6 and in above versions. And I mean best inheritance, try catch, the use of these structs inside the external methods, etc. And that is a huge problem for us to program like in Soho style. So the base farming is just a base farming. So it is totally uncoupled from the concept of liquidity, the concept of what is the balance of the owners, because it is totally abstract about this, and you can have several. You see, for example, total farming liquidity. This means that in the first version, it was linked, of course, to the total supply of the liquidity pool. But in the delegation, we don't have liquidity pool, but we want to recycle the code because it was written really well. So I tried to be less the more abstract as possible, as abstract as possible, in order to be sure that you can use the same code for several things. And the most important thing that we were working on was the conversion of a concept of time expressed in blocks to a concept of time expressed in second. As I already said during the AMA, this is extremely useful for two things. First of all, because blocks creation is not perfect. So you can say that in an average you can have a block every 15 seconds, but it's not really like this. It's just in the big numbers low. So we decided to switch to seconds, even because the merge brought a new timing for blocks, even on the mainnet. But the most important part is because, as I said, the sidechain don't have the same block creation rhythm as the mainnet. So it was important for us to have the same code for all the chains, for all the side chains and mainnet, in order to have everything working very well. And now let's go to the organization. The organization first. How can I say, first repository, because there are two repositories of the organizations. The first one, which is more similar to the actual, it is the same of the actual Ethereum SOS organization code, and the second one, which was the version 2 we were preparing for the factories on the for the organization creation factory inside the front end that I will show you right now. What are here the edits we did in the original computational organization repository? First of all, I think that we have, yes, the 1.0 version, the 1.1 version, and the 1.3 version. These versions, why these versions? These versions, the difference stays in the OS apps we did in the time. Let's see if I can show you what edits. Oops, sorry. My computer is low because I'm broadcasting from for and share my screen on StreamYard and on Discord. So there is of course the initial commit, the OS, the first OS app. What was the OS? The first OS app. Does someone remember what was the first problem we encountered? Yes, it was something linked to the delegations manager. Yes, delegations, but thanks GPN, but I don't remember. Yes, the insurance, I think. The insurance was a system that we introduced in the second moment when we decided that it could be so difficult to let someone attach a delegation without having the insurance that is a good actor. And we solved this problem introducing the insurance, which is this payment that the creator of the delegation must pay in OS, of course, in order to be to attach himself. And I think that if I remember correctly, everyone. Let me check. I think that everyone can. Yes, everyone can pay this insurance for the delegation. Let's say, for example, I want to attach my delegation. First of all, I need, let's say, 200 OS to attach. Everyone can put these. Yes. Let's see. The method is called pay for. You have to provide the delegation address and the amount of token you are donating as an insurance for this delegation. If and of course you can retire payment. If you have enough OS, you can attach the delegation. And I think that if the delegation is banned, you lose this insurance. And that is because you were acting as a bad actor and you will be banned. So you have an economic disincentive if you are a bad actor. That was the OS app number one. Then was, yes, new factory cloning method that we introduced, for the farming. If you remember, we had another OS hub involving the farming, and we introduced the new cloning method here in order to be cheaper to deploy farming contracts. Farming Gen 1 and Farming Gen 2 for Uniswap v3 and the original AMM aggregator. Then we introduced the optimism verticalization, which means colonies. And where there was the code of this, let's see. Yes, I remember that I created the abstract colony because, of course, again, all these things were made from November to now on. And I'm going to show you today what we are going to do, what we did in this period. The idea of the abstract colony was to keep it simple. If I remember correctly, I think that I had a presentation about that, and it is the same code that can be used on layer 1 and layer 2 optimism. And there were just a little bit changes. Let me see if I am able to show you. Yes, the environment optimism package has colony, and the colony inherits the abstract colony, and it just sends the token. It is used to send the token to the L2 bridge, and all this stuff were used in order to be able to to publish the farming contracts, the Covenant's farming contract on Optimism, and being able to transfer all the protocol fee, all the transfer fees to the protocol on mainnet, and that is must be used using the L2 bridge, or the original L2 bridge by Optimism. Then I see here another change in the delegation factory. Okay, just renaming, nothing important. I think even here, factory of factories, yes, just a couple of edits in order to deploy the factory of factories again on the Optimism layer, because the fees of factory of factories used for the transfer fee for the farming on layer 1 is grabbed from the organization. But on Optimism, we didn't have the organization, of course, so we need to use a fixed percentage to be sent to the L1 bridge through the colony. I needed to do not rewrite another factory of factories and factories for layer 2. Again, it could be extremely difficult to have two pieces of code pretty similar, but that differs in some parts. And that's and for this reason, I was forced, of course, to redeploy the factory of factories. Sorry, to edit the factory of factories from the original code of the layer 1. Of course, the factory of factory weren't deployed again because there was no reason to redeploy it. But the new version of Optimism was written with the edits, and they are compatible, of course. Okay, and then there was 1.3 where we fixed the. Do you remember the problem of the fixed inflation that at the start allowed to pass the liquidity pools used for the fixed inflation from an external source? But this was dangerous because we had a problem where someone created a kind of bad token that can configure an attack vector that we weren't able to prevent in the first for the first release, and then we were forced to have the edit and the OS up, of course, and in fact. Now, with the new edit, the MM plugin and the liquidity pool address, and of course the swap path used to transform the already minted OS for the fixed inflation in Ethereum were hard cabled and passed at initialization on the lazy init of the creation of the fixed inflation, and we needed to change that. And that was possible with the proposal, the OS app proposal number 3, if I remember correctly. Yes, it was number 3. And then again, there is the switch from block.number to block timestamp logic for all the things that use the time in the blocks. The time in the contracts. For example, the treasury splitter. The treasury splitter just splits the money every X blocks. Now it can split every split event that for us is every X seconds expressed in Unix time, so seconds. And you can read the block timestamp in order to be sure that you can trigger it or not. For the farming, because it is also used into the Ethereum OS farming, and no, the dividends farming is not useful, but for the OS farming was useful because it already had this is one of the new entry for the organizations factory, which is not already for the Ethereum SOS organization. Maybe it will have, maybe not. We can think about it, but I don't know, but it is everything is ready to be used events instead of blocks. OS fixing inflation manager, of course, that I think was a little bit complicated, yes, because there is also the inflation calculation with events, and of course it's not in blocks already, but of course in timestamp. And the investments manager, because you know the investments manager buy every week, if I remember correctly, and sell every yes, buy every week and sell. So buy tokens every week and sell every 3 months. And yes, there are things linked to blocks too here. And that's it. Okay. As I said, this is the first version of Ethereum SOS organization, but there is a second Ethereum SOS package called, in this case, we called it Guilds V2. By the way, guys, if you want to ask questions, you can use the chat of the stage. You just click on the top right corner of you have the icon to open the chat if you want to say something. So let's go. Here we have, for example, also an interface of the Bazaar. A first version of the interface of the Bazaar. We prepared the wireframes and we gave them to an external team that made something. I think that we arrived to swap something, if I remember correctly, but I don't remember if we developed the contracts on Ring B. Maybe I don't remember. But the wireframes were ready. The first version were ready. Then I think that we abandoned that project in order to have another one. But the code is here. Okay, so I have to go to the other screen. Just a second to read the questions. So after all this code and this stuff, after the disappearing of the CEO, do you have enough financial resources to continue the project? If so, are you able to show some figures and projections? You had been talking about marketing tier 1 to 3. I never talked about marketing tier. Can you show the results as mentioned in the results of what? Sorry. What's the timeline to have a full release? Sorry, but this is a technical things. It's not an sorry. I need to focus on the technical stuff. Yes, okay, Jack. These questions were answered in the AMA. Can be found in the general link. Okay, thank you. Yes, the Bazaar interface. I was taking. Let me check. Where is the guilds entities? Because at the first time we called them guilds V2 and then we rebranded it as entities. So this is a new copy of the project. So it was called the original Ethereum SOS, Ethereum's computational organization project. I need to close some windows because there is a lot of things open. We copied the original project and we decided to edit a brand new project because the Ethereum computational organization's report was public. This was private because at the first we, had this strategy to develop everything in monolithic, and now we are changing the direction of this. So what is the new things here? Let me think. Okay, the first one is of the proposal manager system. Um, because we introduced the new factory system, uh, we can we can create a cheaper version even of the proposals. If you remember, when you vote on a proposal on the actual Ethereum OS version, Ethereum OS organization version, you see that the proposal has, let's say, 1,000 votes, but inside the proposals manager address, there are stored 300 votes, 300 tokens. Why this? Because the proposals manager stores the tokens and the votes of every single proposal. And a lot of people got confused about that. And I can understand it, but in that period, not doing like that means that for every proposal I have to create a new smart contract, like it was into the original DFO Hub, DFO Hub technology, and that is it's not cheap. It was expensive at the time, so we decided to be cheaper and introducing reintroducing again this method. So in the new organization version that will be released, every proposal is a brand new smart contract that is deployed with using the new factory system that came after the release. And this is why I want to use the incremental development, because when you see the project, the big picture, okay, you stay there, and because the code works like this, guys. You finish the project and say, okay, this is a shitty piece, I can edit and do it better. This is a shitty piece again, I can edit and do it better. And this is the continued integration and continued development approach. And that is what I want to do with the new versions. And so in this case, with the new proposal manager that will be available with the new factory system, every proposal is a single contract that holds only the votes of that contract, and it is better even because it's cheaper, similar to use just one smart contract for everything. This is one of the changes. Let me check if I can show you. Yes, because the proposals manager now has the manager itself that just lets you create. Let me check. Yes, just let you create the proposal. And when you create the proposal, when you need to create a proposal, you have two choices. Provide the code that will be executed, or use the code of a serverless proposal. For example, when you have to vote to change, let's say, the inflation of the token, you must use a pre-deployed model that you can call just one time, to create one time, and you can reuse every time. But if you have to create a root proposal, you in the first version, and for first version I mean the one that is already deployed on Ethereum OS, you must first create the code of the root proposal, deploy the smart contract, and then pass the code, the address to the proposals manager in order to be created, to create the proposal. In the new approach, you don't have to, and this was thought by, this was I think by Frank, old good Frank, that says you don't have to be forced to deploy the code of the execution of the proposal, because let's suppose that the proposal doesn't pass. Okay, you deployed a contract for nothing. So the idea is, do not deploy the contract. Just demand the contract deployment at the execution time. So you create a proposal just with the bytecode, and and it is called executor. And you are passing not an address of the already deployed contract anymore, but the bytes of the bytecode. And once the proposal is created, once the proposal passed, at that time you create the executor and then execute it. And this is extremely important for performances, because this means that you are not forced to do two transaction when you have a proposal. First create the code and then create the transaction with the execution code. Just build the code and pass it to the creation. Of course, you can pass a not good code, for example, an empty string, and in that case, the execution never triggered, but you are still always allowed to retire your votes and your tokens, of course. Other changes here were made for the governance manager, because we introduced a really complex system, I have to say, that let us vote not only with the voting token you choose, let's say, for example, OS, but even with the delegation tokens. So people are not forced to unwrap the delegation tokens and vote and then rewrap them, but just vote with the delegation tokens. The system automatically recognizes that it is a delegation vote, and you can use it. And also with the Bazaar liquidity pool, which doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, if you used to vote with the Bazaar pool liquidity pool token, you have, for example, you can have, for example, a different weight on your vote. For example, let's say if I vote with NOS, it means one vote. If I vote with a liquidity pool token of OS, of course, on the Bazaar, that could be two. That could mean two votes, because you were a good guy that were support the cause by offering liquidity pool. So your vote matters. And that is another thing that we introduced. Also, I think that here there is also some orphan code that introduced the item v3 stuff. Yes, because in the repository we also have. Let me see if I can find it. I think that we changed the name. Item score. This is item score item v2. I think. I'm not able to find it, but there is also item v3, which is abandoned right now, because we encountered several problems with OpenSea, with item v2, and we wanted to redeploy the item standard. Okay, let's take a look at the questions. Okay, there has also been a refusal to make a substantial statement about what's happened with Alan. Not that it's crucially important, but still, I cannot understand this English. Maybe someone can. Okay, thank you, Bakai. We have released this statement and followed up with the. Okay. Nothing important, nothing linked to code. What I can show you right now. Okay, another thing that were made for the organization was something that we figured it out. It was useful after we came back from Dubai. So April, I think, start of April, um, uh, a better way to provide the serverless proposals. Uh, in the code, everything that is a serverless proposal, or for example, the token buy and token sell proposal, in the code were called proposal models because they are models of a proposal. Root proposal can let you do any kind of proposal if you have the possibility. Proposal models, in the proposal model, you have just one execution code and you can redeploy it several times, proposing always that. For example, when I have to choose the tokens to buy for the investments fund, for the investments manager, the code of the proposal is always the same. Of course, it is initialized every time with a new configuration of tokens. And in the first version, the actual one that is online, that is deployed, this piece of code was in the proposal model. Sorry, in the proposals manager. But it is strictly linked to the investments fund. Okay. So in this new version, we invented this new component, abstract component, called proposal model holder that lets you provide proposal models for your manager. All the managers you can see here. There is the DeFi manager, delegations manager, investments manager, model-based farming manager, proposals manager, etc., etc. Every manager can have or cannot have the proposal models, and you have the code right here. So the proposal models are not linked to the proposals manager anymore, but to the specific component. Let's say, for example, what happens right now in the front end. I take the organization, you go to the tab governance, the governance tab, you query the proposals manager in order to say, okay, give me all the proposals models of your organization. And the proposals manager just lists that. And you see the US inflation, investment, token buy, token sell, this and that, etc. In the new version, you don't have this approach anymore. You have another approach, more flexible, because, okay, you go to the governance tab and see, okay, give me all the managers you have. Do you have the delegations manager? Do you have the investments manager? Because, for example, your organization doesn't have. You have the treasury splitter manager? Yes, okay. For each component, give me all the proposal models. And they must be, and they are, you can recompose the list at the same time. What this means in terms of in terms of gas fees, when you have, for example, when we needed to change the investments manager, the proposal, the OSAP proposal that we created was forced to do two things: change the investments manager with the new one, and go to the proposals manager and say, change the proposals models linked to the old investments manager, because even the proposals models code contain the old logic. The new proposal models contain the new investments fund, investments manager logic. If this new approach was present, we just needed to say, okay, change the investments manager. The investments manager has the reference to the proposal models. And this means that when you change the piece, you also change the way to interact by proposal, of course, with this model. So the thing is hardly coupled. The things are hardly coupled. someone can say, somebody can ask, okay, but why did you not think about this in the at start when you created? Again, these kind of things can be come out just when you see the big picture. You have everything on your site, and you can see and you can interact with it, and you interact with it, and you can see, okay, this thing is good, this thing is bad, this thing will be done better, this thing is okay, etc. And there you have the answers, and you can provide a more performant structure. And for this reason, it is important to have, again, a continuous development and incremental structure. But I have to say that it is not enough to have an incremental development, because there are several rules you have to follow in order to be strictly decentralized. Because change pieces like this means change that you can change everything, and it is not good for decentralization, I know. And you can, and you must find an equilibrium. I don't know how to say in English. Sorry, my bad English. But I think that for the future version, I found this kind of throughput, let's say. And yes, but I don't want to talk about the future right now. We already talked about the future. Just let's keep focus on the present, on what we are going to do to release the organization. And this is for the organization. Another thing that we did here was extremely interesting, and this came out during the Dubai conference when we met in Dubai. That is the problem that we figure out while triggering several things. You have the fixed inflation you have to trigger, the investments manager to have to trigger, the treasury splitter, the farming, the dividends farming, and the dividends farming had a problem because it was called suddenly by someone with some meat inside, etc., etc. So all the triggers went out of sync because of, there is the human being, which is unpredictable, and there is, of course, the code that was written in that way, because we didn't imagine. You cannot imagine everything. You must be focused on security, but this is another thing that I think that it could be called user experience. And that could be a problem, because we need to, for example, one of the problem that Ali addressed me, said, okay, now we triggered everything, but the farming contract will trigger tomorrow. So I have to wait to do the post for the marketing because everything is triggered, but I had to wait this, and people can say what this is triggered and this is not, and that was a problem, of course. And we tried, of course, to resolve even this problem with the treasury split triggered component. What this means, that every time that there is a component, the investments manager, delegations manager, a farming manager, etc., which is linked to the treasury splitter. All the economics of the fixed inflation. There is the fixed inflation that passed money to the treasury splitter. The treasury splitter passed money to the delegations manager, investments manager, farming, Ethereum farming, etc. In the new version we wrote, we have this component. All these components I mentioned are now, let's see if I can just show you, are now, yes, treasury splitter triggered component. That means that the treasury splitter doesn't send money and stop his duty. It sends money, and after it sent all the money he had to send um, to the various voices, it triggered those elements. So every time the investments manager received the money, the treasury splitter calls the investments manager and say, look, man, I sent you the money. Do your business logic. And the business logic is to buy the tokens. Same for the delegations manager, same for the farming, etc., etc., etc. So the problem was solved. The one that the desync between all the components, because all they need to do is to wait the treasury splitter to be called. So the call is just one: call the treasury splitter, and the treasury splitter does the entire business logic. Of course, this was written, but not yet tested, because it was in beta. I was writing this in the last period, and there could be a problem here because of gas consumption. Because one thing is to call time, time by time the things and call everything in the same transaction. The gas could finish at a certain point, and the entire stack don't work. So we need even here finer throughput on what is the best way to do these triggers. Maybe, for example, that could be okay. Okay, I call you, I treasury splitter triggered you, but don't start right now. Just wait for something to call you, but you're extremely sure that you must be called something like this. And I will work with you during the Vasa pills on it, and we can try it together. And how these things works, let's see. Yes, so the investments manager is a treasury splitter triggered component that has this trigger method that every time is called, the swap from ETH is triggered. So the treasury splitter send the Ethereum to the investments manager. The investments manager used this Ethereum to buy the tokens in the logic, no? And it works. It works like this. I think that there is more for the treasury splitter triggered component, because let me see. Yeah, for example, the trigger method of the trigger component could be called just by the treasury splitter. So no one can call it. Another thing is that the trigger accepts a general purpose input that must be recognized from the special component. So let's see if I can explain you. So in the treasury splitter, you have the receivers, the list of receivers and percentages. The list of receivers gives to you a map who is the first to be called, the second one, etc., etc., etc. Because why this? Let's suppose I have to trigger the treasury splitter and I have to call the investments manager. Let's go to see what is the swap from ETH method input. There are the min amounts to be passed in order to not be sandwiched, and the executor reward receiver, because there is, of course, a reward on that. These are the methods of the investments manager. And then let's see another component. Let's see what I can think that the DeFi manager, no, the delegations manager. Let's see what is the name. I think that it is just split. It doesn't exist anymore here, and this is a good thing. We will come back here. Okay, so go to the model-based farming manager. Yes, rebalance rewards per block, which is called to the Ethereum farming that accept just the executor reward receiver. So we have the reward receiver for the farming and the min amounts and reward receiver for the investments manager. Uh, and there is the treasury splitter manager that has a general purpose list of addresses. So it doesn't know, and nobody knows what is the first to be called, the second one, the third one, because every organization is different. Keep in mind that almost everything was created since the beginning in a way that everybody could create its own organization as he wished. So, for example, I can have a farming, you cannot have a farming, and the list is different even in the order. So, this means that when I call the split treasury, I just pass trigger input as a general purpose list of bytes that contains all the inputs for all the components. For example, let's suppose that the first one is the investments manager and the second one is the farming. The first one, this array must have length 2. In the first position, there is the input for the investments manager. In the second one, there is the input of the model, the farming. And so for this reason, the trigger accept as input a general purpose bytes array, bytes string, and it is the let me see if I can show you. It is the component itself that translate that bytes into the original. In this case, it's not used, but let's go in the case of the investments manager. The input bytes is transformed into the min amounts. In this case, and address 0 as reward receiver. So you can call the swap from if. So the input contains just the min amounts and the address 0 is the executor receiver. And you can call it in a general purpose way. So you can create your own organization as you wish. The delegations manager. Let's see here. I don't know, guys. I was supposed to have a Vasa pills of 30 minutes. Sorry, John, can you GPM, sorry. Can you tell me how much time we are live? 58 minutes. Okay, I supposed to have half an hour of a Vasa pill, but yes, this is the first one. So let's go for until the end. Delegations manager. What I can show you in the delegations manager, it is totally different. It was totally rewritten, and I think that I was working on it because there are several things. Because, for example, I don't see here the part linked to the farming. Let me check. Yes, the delegations manager is also a base farming. The base farming is the one I just to remember. It is the first contract I showed you kept from Bazaar. So we also recycle code in time. So this means that the delegation manager was designed as a farming, because in the new version of the delegations manager, uh, once you as a delegation, as a token holder, wrap your tokens for that delegation. Uh, the delegate. Okay, let's try to be more. Let's try to explain it better. Uh, in the actual scheme of the delegations, every delegation received tokens basing on how many tokens are held by the delegation. But that could be a problem, because people can, when the trigger is about to start, people can say, okay, enter in the delegation so we can grab more hits. And that could be a problem, because yeah, people can just wrap tokens, take the grant, and then unwrap, and that is not a good incentive. But in the new system, if you do a good job as a delegation, you take the Ethereum reward basing on how much time and how many tokens the people wrapped inside your delegation. Let's see how this works. Okay. So touch, ban, wrap, no. Wrap. It cost me a lot of time here to let this contract work, because extremely huge. So I also need to do. I think that the most of the time actually is spent, of course, for tests. But secondary, our contracts are really complex, because yeah, you see, a contract inherits another contract that inherits another contract, and the length grows. So sometimes it is extremely frequent that the contract goes out of bounds, and the EVM cannot deploy it. So you must be able to split everything. So every time I create a new contract, I always go be here there on Multiverse to try to compile it and see if it works, because sometimes I spend hours to work on code, and when I try to test it, it doesn't work, and I have to rethink the entire design of the contract in order to let it work. There are several tricks to do this, but if you are able to do this at very start of the project, you can at very start of the smart contract, you can bypass it, which is a huge pain, guys. For example, another episode of this was when I was rereading, I think a couple of months ago, or maybe I think in February, I don't remember, the new covenants, the new IMM aggregator, because there is also the new IMM aggregator if you want to see it, where everything was rethinked for introducing Uniswap v3. As you know, MM aggregator doesn't support Uniswap v3 because MM aggregator was thinked to support all those MMs that had liquidity pool as ERC20 tokens, and of course Uniswap v3 has ERC71. So I needed to invent a new standard in order to introduce also Uniswap v3 in the entire structure. The contract grew, and the contracts didn't work anymore. And it was difficult even there, because Uniswap v3 introduced a lot of complexity even over there. And then when you rethink the MM aggregator, you had to rethink Presto, farming contracts. And when I was about to finish, the idea of the deflectionary tokens came again out, because at start, the idea for hub times, we thought that those tokens were not so popular token, let's say, and okay, me and others said, okay, those are not important tokens, so let's say, but let's abandon it. But I think that in these last times they came out again, and we figured out that we were not ready with the actual structure to support it. So we also need to introduce even things in the proposals. For example, I have to do this to be extremely sure that also deflectionary tokens work, and that is a huge work, guys, to do. Uh, but let's go back when on what I say here. Go again, item v3 stuff to be insert once item v3 was ready, of course. Let me see. Okay. Here. Okay, here. Wrap. So let's suppose I was saying use delegation manager based as a farming contract. I want to wrap this amount of tokens for this delegation. What happens is that at the end of the story, the sync method is called. This means that when you pass the delegation address, it is called the wallet of this delegation, and the position of this delegation token is synced in the farming. Sync is the method of the farming, which means that once you add tokens or once you wrap tokens for that delegation, you are updating the farming position of that delegation, the globally, in order to receive the its percentage of the treasury. So this means that not anymore enter the last day before the trigger, because you didn't measure enough reward. So this new method just let be just virtuous delegation to go up instead of those that just are there to steal money, let's say. This is extremely important. Another thing, I think this is the last one, which is the treasury manager, that we renamed it into DeFi manager, because even here, gas consumption and and deflectionary tokens. The new treasury called DeFi Manager not only transfer tokens, but also execute stuff. What it is able to execute: a pressed operation, swap, an AMM operation, add liquidity, remove liquidity, Uniswap v3 operation, mint, increase liquidity, decrease liquidity, and collect. This was made before the new version, the new AMM aggregator came out. Open position, add liquidity or remove liquidity on Covenant's farming, Gen 1 and Gen 2. Use the Bazaar to claim the rewards of the farming. Use the order book, which is another piece that I didn't show because I forgot. There is tons and tons and tons of code we wrote in this period. Order book was one of those that let you fill orders between through the AMMs and with the order book that we created to share, to put buy and sell orders on NFTs. Even all this code is ready, of course, and transfer. In the old version of the organization, all those things were not possible. In the new version, we need, of course, to change something. For example, the Bazaar order book, etc. But you can also vote without a root proposal to do this kind of operations just by voting and in a synchronous way. So this means that you can prepare an operation. For example, in 3 days swap these tokens for Ethereum. You prepare the pressed operation or the add liquidity or farming, etc., and you can execute using the min amounts you need to not be sandwiched, etc. But this is extremely huge if you think about it, because also organization can do businesses with the money they have in the treasury, and everything was inserted into the old treasury manager, which is now called DeFi manager. This was extremely complex, but this gave me new ideas for new versions, but I don't want talking about. I just let you see that the DeFi manager smart contract is made by this old smart contract. This is the entire DeFi manager. You have the first one, and you have the all the DeFi managers module, because everything was not possible to be in one contract. And second of all, let's see that we create governance farming version 3. Let's say we can introduce it as a new module, just interesting what we need inside the structs, etc., without modifying the code of DeFi manager, but just attaching a new module, and everything works like a charm. So guys, I think that for today is enough. Let's have a recap. I show you the Bazaar because I love to let you see the complexity of it, and of course the base farming, which is a huge component and a very wonderful component. And then we took a look about the original Ethereum SOS organization repository, and the new one we were working about. So the code is here. It must be a little bit edited, because yeah, for example, here you have some errors, but it's just because I removed all the references of the Open Zeppelin contracts. All the external things that must be used were removed, because I replaced everything with Swiss knife. In Swiss knife, I just provided all this stuff. Swiss knife, if you remember, it is the Swiss Army knife that I created a bunch of smart contracts with a lot of utilities that I can use in all the contracts. The factories are there, the general purpose contracts are there, all the capabilities for using ERC20s, transforms, for example, bytes in string, numbers in strings for the dynamic queries, dynamic metadata are there, dynamic metadata logic is there, and that is, of course, again, our Swiss knife to do anything. And this is another thing that evolved in time. You can see the repository is public. You can see all the commits over there and ask questions if you want. So yeah, I think that's all for today. Thank you for listening. If you have some questions, you can write. We recorded the video, so I think that we can share with you if you want to rewatch it. Nothing. Thank you very much.